Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Time for the next episode of How Much to Keep, where we try to figure out what the going rate will be for some of our outgoing free agents this upcoming offseason. And today we have another kind of tricky one and a little bit of a sensitive topic for some Seahawks fans is this particular guy. I am talking about Ethan Pocic, one of the most hated Seahawks over the last 2 years, I think. To me, Ethan Pocic is the Trey Flowers of the offense, where is he good? Not really. Is he a problem? Sure. But he's not nearly as he is the whipping boy, the pinata, the punching bag for so much stuff that goes wrong, and I feel like a lot of it is unwarranted. So, Ethan Pocic is a free agent this offseason, and we'll see how the team feels about him now. Because that's how I feel about him. I don't think he's very good. I'm not really excited about bringing him back, but I don't think he's one of the worst players in the league the way that some people do. Again, I think he's just the whipping boy for everything that goes wrong on this offense sometimes. And watching what he did over the second half of 2021, that's not my impression. Flawed player, but let's take a look at what we're working at here. Let's go over Ethan Pocic's career so far. So, first of all, he's injury prone, and that is indisputable. He's been injured a lot in his career. That's part of the problem. We understand that. However, the Seattle Seahawks made a decision to play Ethan Pocic out of position his first 3 years in the NFL, and he looked awful. He looked like a huge bust. Finally, in 2020, we let him play center, and he looked passable. He looked better. He looked capable. Honestly, he looked good until he had that concussion. And then after the concussion, things kind of fell off. But then you're going into 2021, Ethan Pocic starts out hurt. You have Kyle Fuller take over for him until Kyle Fuller proves that he is actually as bad as some people think Pocic is. And then you put Pocic back out there and you're like, okay, not bad. Now, he is physically weak. He does get bullied. He's not that strong. He's not strong enough to do some of the things you'd like your center to do. But he does do some things fairly well. And at the end of the day, you look at his metrics from PFF for 2021, played 600 snaps, allowed 2 sacks, and had a solid 68 grade. So, Ethan Pocic is probably going to get more than a minimum contract this offseason. His play warrants it. However, there's almost like this negative black cloud over this guy where people think he's worse than he is. I don't know if this is just a Seahawks thing or an NFL-wide thing, but it feels like people feel like this guy is Kyle Fuller, when in reality only Kyle Fuller is Kyle Fuller. So, looking at this guy, he's about to turn 27 before the season starts. He'll turn 27 in August. He was a second-round pick. He did play 600 decent snaps in 2021. He, I think, is kind of a good fit for the Waldron offense because he's somebody who can play decently on the move. He's somebody who can move, play in space. And you factor in all these things, he's going to get something, but it's not going to be a lot. Because, again, that reputation, man, like he cannot outrun this reputation. He can point to his PFF page all he wants to. People think he just sucks. All right, so let's take a look at some of these center contracts, and right away we're going to blow past the first group because Ethan Pocic's not getting 10 mil plus a year. There's no way. Even me, somebody who passively defends him, knows that he's not getting 10 mil plus a year. His reputation alone prevents that. But when we get down to this area of the when we get down to this area, let's take a look at Conor Mcgovern here, a center who signed with the Jets after the 2019 season for $9 million a year over 3 years. Okay, Conor Mcgovern played his first couple years with the Broncos, then he signed with the Jets, $9 million a year. What did he do that last year? He played in every game, 1,000+ snaps. No penalties allowed, 1 sack. PFF grade 72. So Look, we're not there yet, but you notice how there isn't a radical difference here? You notice how this actually isn't as far-fetched a comparison as you might have thought? Yes, Pocic is clearly an inferior player, and even though this was a few years ago, should be getting less money, especially because we know how the middle class of the NFL just kind of has the bottom drop out so fast. But you see how Pocic is suddenly not looking so bad when you look at what a guy like Conor Mcgovern got to play better, but not radically better. So I don't know how to make Posic's reputation as an awful player and his metrics that mark him as a capable player. I don't know how to make them mesh, but it's going to be interesting to see how he's viewed by the general NFL this offseason. So let's keep going. Okay, so past Conor McGovern, Jason Kelce, he was 33 when he signed this contract. I'm not really looking at that. So let's go to Ben Jones, and we're going to have to go back even further, which I don't really like doing because the cap is way less than it's going to be in 2022. So Ben Jones, we're going to take a look at him, and we're going to keep in mind here that this is several years old. So take it with a little bit of a grain of salt here. But when he was 30, he signed for just under $7 million a year for 2 years. And what Ben Jones did in 2018 to earn that money was play pretty much the whole season, 3 penalties, 5 sacks allowed, and a PFF grade of 72.7. So, again, we're probably talking about somebody a little more valuable than Pocic. But Ben Jones was a 4th-round pick, barely a top 100 pick. Pocic has the pedigree. And it's not that radical of a difference, right? Pocic actually allows fewer sacks and had fewer penalties. By the way, those good metrics for Pocic go back to last year too. In 2020, he only allowed like 2 sacks in 14 games or something. So the metrics that Pocic has are comparable to these guys who are getting significant money in free agency with a lower cap. Now, I'll say it again, Pocic injury prone, Posic's reputation is kind of dragged through the mud, etc., etc. But I am not completely willing to rule out that Posic's next deal, if somebody is able to objectively look at his metrics through the last 2 years, might come pretty close to what Ben Jones got. All right, we're really only going to look at one last guy here because the center market kind of flattens out super quick. So Alex Mack, he signed this deal when he was 35. I don't think that's comparable. But David Andrews got 4 years, $19 million, so just under $5 million a year at 28 last offseason. What did David Andrews do in 2020? He played a decent chunk of the season, but he missed some games, missed some time. 1 penalty, 2 sacks, PFF grade of 67.7. Does that sound familiar? Okay? It's not that far off from Pocic. And honestly, you could make an argument that they're roughly identical in terms of how they played in their respective contract years. Now, I don't think that Posic's going to get a 4-year deal. And honestly, he might not even want a 4-year deal. But in terms of average annual value, we're not that far off, are we? We are arguably kind of there. The metric for Ethan Pocic might be around 4.5 to 5 million a year, and that sounds a little crazy, but it may be true. And then after David Andrews, you kind of get into some stuff that's difficult to interpret. Like Andre James got this extension despite having barely played at all. Like he got this extension based off like 100 snaps in 2019, and then he didn't play any offense in 2020 and still got this contract. We got some rookie deals also, and then you also have Justin Britt, our old friend Justin Britt, who signed for $3.2 million just to basically run out the string on his career in Houston with all the other guys just trying to cut a final paycheck. And yeah, you just get down to the very bottom of the drain here, and there's no real comparisons to be drawn. So basically, if you're taking a look at Pocic and you're trying to be objective about what he is, the injury history hurts, so he's probably less than David Andrews in terms of perceived value. But I think that in terms of average annual value, you are looking at something around 4 million a year. And that's factoring in the fact that his reputation is dirt. People think he's the worst in the world. I think that is going to have some bearing. The one final thing to consider, by the way, this free agent class for centers is pretty good. You have Ryan Jensen, Matt Paradis, Jason Kelsey, Ben Jones. You have Austin Corbett, who is listed as a guard, but I think he can. I believe he can play center. Ted Karras is going to be appealing to somebody. I think there's some stuff here that is going to turn some heads. So that is going to depress the value a little bit. But honestly, I think that Ethan Pocic, purely based off his merit as a player, is probably looking at something like 1 year 5 million or 2 years 10 million. But if you factor in the fact that the free agent class of centers is strong, and I feel like his reputation is going to play into it, him playing guard for 3 years really kind of messed him up. I think people perceive him to be worse than he is because of that. I'm going to say you're looking at something like either 1 year 4 million or 2 years 8 million. And that would be something that I would be willing to do as a backup. Maybe you backload the contract 2 years, 8 million, and then he only sees like 3 of it in that first year, and then he never sees the rest of it because you cut him. Ethan Pocic, not really a good player. He has clear weaknesses, but I believe he's clearly worth $3 to $4 million a year as a backup. You can bring him in as your backup, have quality depth, and focus on finding a better player to start in front of him. You can get Kyle Fuller out of here that way, and you have decent insurance if the center position goes awry. But you got to bring him back as a backup, or else I can't really get on board with it. That's it for me. That's about all we can do. I mean, it's hard to compare Pocic to a lot of other players who have recently signed contracts because his inevitable contract is not going to be big. And like I said, the center market, you've got some bigger guys at the top, and then it just falls off a cliff from like 9 million to less than 7 million a year, and then down to less than 5. So let me know what you guys think down below. I'm down with bringing Pocic back for 1 more year as a backup. More than that, and you're playing with fire. But yeah, I'm gonna say 2 years, 8 million, and sign me up. See you guys later. Go Hawks.